Okay, everybody, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach on this one. I'm going to break this down into steps. For those of you that have never built an amp from scratch, now that I have a little experience, I'm going to share with you. So, you saw that I rewired the transformer. You saw that in the first video. And you'll see what I've done here is I've mounted it on the chassis where it's going to go. And I've also installed one tube socket, no other ones, okay? This is going to be my rectifier tube. That's the tube that's closest to the transformer. Right? That's where your rectification takes place. If you look at this diagram, it's right there. It's the 5Y3. And you'll see on the schematic drawing that you'll see that the wires coming right out of the transformer right here come right down to the rectifier tube. So that's going to be the first thing that you want to install. Also, if you look at the schematic, you'll see right here, there's your power coming in, there's your transformer, and of course it goes right to the rectifier. So whenever I build these things, first thing I want to do is I want to get my rectifier tube situated. And you always want that closest to the transformer because you always want your output tubes furthest away from the transformer. But I don't know where they're going to be yet in this one. So from a step-by-step perspective, all I've really done is mount the transformer, twist the leads. Very important, you have to twist the leads on these things because that's how you can reduce hum. So you've got your 5-volt lead, your high power lead, and your 6.3 volt lead. You twist them, very simple. And what I've done here is I've connected the 5-volt lead to the correct pins and the high power, and the center tap is the ground. That's the way it goes. And the 6.3 volt lead is going nowhere right now, and my 2 power leads are going nowhere. So what I did at this point is after I mounted it, I connected a power cord right here. I put a voltmeter on my 6.3 volt leads, and I powered it up on the variac, obviously the isolation transformer in the variac, and I watched the rectifier tube to see if I had filament, and I do. I also watched my 6.3 volt leads to make sure I had 6.3 volts AC, and I did. So I know that the transformer is now behaving normally and properly, and that's going to help me set the stage for the rest of the restore. So that's step one. Mount your transformer, twist your leads, test your rectifier tube. So that's where I am right now. So let's talk about the next step in a minute. Alright everybody, so I've got a little bit of an update here. I've got some sockets mounted. So this is my 6V6 and this is my 12AX7. And as you know, typically what I'll do is I'll mount things, put it all in and then rip it out, and I'm going to try to avoid that for this one, create a world record here for me. So let me show you what my logic is for putting the 6V6 there and the 12AX7 here. So looking at the board, you'll see that it's a relatively small board, and you'll see that the 12AX7 is coming off of this pair of 100K resistors right here, and the 6V6 is coming off of these filter caps right here. And of course there's my rectifier tube, which I have right there. So looking at the circuit board, which is right here, I have to decide what's the right way to mount it. So let me put this board down here for a second. So there's the board, and if you look at the drawing, you'll see that there should be a lug. Let's see if we can point this out. There should be a lug here, here, and there should be one in the center here. And looking at this board, you've got a lug here, here, and in the center. So I know that this side of the board is right here. And I know that I want this side of the board, just again looking at the diagram right here, which is what I'm pointing to. I want this to be closest to the 12AX7. Okay? This way I have the shortest wires. So if I flip this around this way, and let's say I mount it right here, here's my 12AX7, I'm going to have wires coming right here to the 12AX7 tube, and there should be no crossing at all. The same thing is true with the 6V6 tube. So if you look here at the 6V6, you'll see that the leads primarily come off of these filter caps, and some of them come off of this 25 microfarad electrolytic. And again, if my 6V6 is here, here's the leads that are going to be coming off the board. So theoretically, I'll have no crossover of cables. I'll have everything nice and clear, and I'll be able to mount this board really easily under here because I've got plenty of space. Now the added advantage is this side of the board here, which we'll look at the top, goes to the volume control right here and goes to the inputs, which is perfect because here I have my holes right here for the volume control, okay, and I have the holes for the inputs. So this is going to be the correct placement for this board, definitely, just like this. I am going to use the insulating board underneath, and I am going to raise it up off the chassis a little bit, so it'll be something like this. I'll use my sheet metal to fill in these holes that I don't need. Same thing over here, and that's going to be the plan. All right. The other advantage, which I want to shout out real quickly, is if you look at this 5x3 tube, you'll see that there's a wire right here, which comes off of pin 8 and goes to a connection here. Okay? Well, as luck would have it, that wire is right here, and here's the connection it goes to. So I've got a nice little short run here. So that's the plan. That's the way I'm going to mount this thing. I'll spend some time doing the mounting of the board, and then we'll come back and show you the progress. Thanks. Alright, so we're going to start wiring up the 6.3 volt filament lines, and I wanted to just explain something. So I've got my my filaments here twisted, and you'll see I've got them going to the dial lamp here, right? And you'll notice that I've got these two 100 ohm resistors coming out of there. And I know in my other amps that I've built I've mentioned these, but not really why they're there. So really what this purpose of this is to reduce hum. Typically on a transformer, if it has a center tap, you would take the center tap and you would probably put a 100 ohm resistor to ground on the center tap, which would kind of act like a fuse, really, right? It would prevent damage if something else, if something went wrong. But what we're doing here is we're kind of eliminating our chances for hum, or at least significantly reducing them, by putting these 100 ohm resistors to ground. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run these wires to the dial lamp, have these two resistors go to ground, and I'm going to run another pair of wires and go over to my tubes. So I'm going to have a kind of a run of wire this way. Down here I'm going to clean it up nicely and mount it here, and then it's going to come across here, connect to this 12AX7 tube, and then to the 6V6 tube. So that's the purpose of the resistors, and of course you wouldn't do that on your high side. You only do this on the lower side. You don't need to do it on the rectifier tube, obviously, which is the 5 volt here. You would only do it on the 6.3s because that's where you've got the greatest chance of hum, because they're running around the entire chassis. So I'm going to get all that wired up, and the next step after I get all that wired up is going to be to put the tubes in, power it up, test it. I'll show you what that looks like, and then we're going to populate the board here and get that ready to mount. And of course, as we mentioned before, that's going to go somewhere around here in this area. Okay, let me go get this wiring done, and I'll be back. One thing I'll show you about the wires that you need to connect to your tubes here, you always need to twist them, and I always found it's easy to use something like this. Obviously, the chassis has a little leg there. Just take the wire and braid it, just like you were braiding your daughter's hair. So you take this and you run that here, make sure that you reduce hum, and go over here. Let me go get the wiring done. Alright, so we've got the filament wiring done. So you'll see I've got the two resistors I mentioned going to a terminal strip to ground, and I've got my wires coming here from the transformer going to the light socket, and then I've got a twisted pair coming up here to the 12AX7. This goes to pin 9, and I have to bridge pins 4 and 5 on the 12AX7. And then I've got a pair of wires coming down here to the 6V6, which goes to pins 2 and 7. So that's all sound. We're just going to take one quick look. I've got this wired into just a standard cord, and I've got some caps on it, obviously. So let's power this thing up slowly on the variac and see what happens. So here's the variac. We're going to start at 0, and let's go up to 40 to start with and see if we get any glow. Looks like our bulb is lit. That's a good sign. Let's just give it a second to bake. Make sure nothing's going to start smoking. Okay, let's go up to 70 and see what happens. That's getting brighter. That's a good sign. Let's see if we have any filament yet. Looks like we've got some filament on the 5Y3, and it looks like the 6V6 has some filament. I don't see anything yet on the 12AX7. That may need a little bit more juice here. Let's pop it up a little bit. Let's go up to 95. It's nice and bright. Let's see if we get any glow on this yet. Oh, there it is. I do see glow. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I do see some filament glow. We've got glow here. We've got glow here. So we have all of our filaments connected correctly. That's good news. I'm going to let that bake just for a second. And I'm going to go all the way up to 110. Actually, I'll go to 115. We'll go full power, see what happens. So I've got a nice bright jewel. Everything's looking good. Alright. We're in good shape here. Alright, so I'm going to let this cook for a little bit. My next step is going to be to install a volume control right here. Of course, I said I'm going to populate this board, and that's going to be part of the next plan. And then we'll take it from there. So I think I'm going to end this video here because I don't like to make these too long. When I come back on the next video, I'll have this board populated. I'll have it mounted inside the chassis, and I'll show you exactly how those wires will be nice and short, which is exactly what my plan is, right? When I showed you what my layout was going to be, the plan was to keep those wires really short. So we're really close. Transformer's working well. It's been rewired. And our filament windings are good, both the 6.3 and the 5. So looking good. The only one that we have yet to test yet is obviously the high voltage, which has to go to the board after I get it populated. So I'm going to end this one here. I'm happy with the progress so far, and we're going to keep plugging away. This is Ron. Thanks for watching.